Hi, what's up everyone? Welcome to my today's session, a live stream where I'll focus on the backend web development roles. So if you are new to this channel, you may know that I've been, actually if you are new then you don't know, but those of you who have been watching some of my videos know that I've been in IT for quite some time and I've been interacting with backend and front-end developers. So in today's video, I'll focus on the backend developers, backend web developers. So for example, Java developers. I'll be sharing my screen, so stay tuned if you'd like to know a little more about the backend web development roles, how to source them, how to find them on LinkedIn. So let's dive right in. I'll be sharing my screen. Now you can see a LinkedIn and this is just the basic profile, right? I also have prepared a mind map for you guys. You can find it on one of the pages in the booklet of mind maps. So if you go to page probably 7, yeah, this is the page 7, you will see that the backend developers are a sub-segment of the software engineering roles. You can see it right here on the right side, the backend developers. And what do we know about backend developers? Well, there are three main IT layers, right? So there is front end, there is backend, and there is storage, so databases. Backend developers usually take care of the backend stuff, you know, the backend APIs, the backend code, the code that runs on the server side, plus the data storage. So they usually use some of these programming languages: JavaScript, Python, Java, PHP, C#, Ruby, or Perl, right? As you can see right here. And there are some more languages, but these are some of the most popular. And if I were to choose just a few, I would choose JavaScript, Java, PHP, C#. Yeah, probably these few. And then each of these languages has some framework related. So if you scroll down to page 13, you would see that, for example, Java has a few frameworks that have been developed in Java, and those frameworks are like templates. So if you are using a Microsoft PowerPoint, you may be using some templates. If you are using Microsoft Word, you may be using some other templates. If you are using on Mac, the pages or Mac numbers, there are some different templates, right? So this is something similar, you know, like the frameworks are supposed to make the life of developers easier. So you can see some of the popular frameworks such as Spring or Hibernate, Grails, Java Server Faces, Google Web Toolkit. Okay, so these are just a few related. So if you are in recruitment, you should be aware of some of these programming languages and frameworks, because then you can recognize developers just based on the languages or frameworks they mention on their profiles. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask in comments. I'm recording this live so I can answer some of your comments, and I see that you guys are watching it now live, so feel free to ask a question. If you'd like me to look at some specific profile, I can just open it up and Google it quickly, so don't worry at all. Then, you know, if I'm just thinking about how to recognize these profiles, I usually focus on the programming language at first, and second is the framework. So the framework is, for example, Angular, React, like these are the front-end frameworks that I talked about yesterday, and Node.js is used on the back-end side. Okay, so it's good to know what is on the front end, what is on the back end, and if you see a Node.js developer, well, you know that this person is a back-end developer. Okay, so it is what it is. It's not rocket science at the end of the day. So coming back to our LinkedIn list of profiles, I just go with a broad search at first. Backend developers, I see a few, so I can just start opening them. For example, Dmitry, just completely randomly, I'm opening a few profiles. Dmitry is a backend PHP developer, if I remember correctly. I saw it on the previous page. Yes, backend PHP developer. So we know that PHP developers use frameworks such as Laravel, Symfony, CodeIgniter, Zend in the past. It's not as popular as it used to be anymore. So let's see which framework he uses. Oh, he uses Laravel. You can see it right here. Laravel. He uses MySQL database, he uses Elasticsearch, he uses Docker and Kubernetes for the DevOps setup, for continuous integration, continuous deployment. So he seems to be a senior developer, because he's been developing since 2009, as you can see it right here, right? So 2009, 2015, he's already been using Laravel 5 in 2015, together with Docker, yeah. Okay, so this is a specialist who only focuses on the PHP stack with Laravel framework. Okay, so if I were to look for a PHP Laravel developer, like this would be a great fit. Obviously, if a client of mine is looking for JavaScript backend developer, like this person would not be a good fit. So this is how you can really quickly screen a candidate's profile. And I see a question from L World. So, oh, you are starting a new IT recruitment job. Very cool, very cool. What would you recommend to focus on to begin with? That's a great question, L World. What to begin with? Oh yeah, I can highlight this question. That's a very cool feature. So what to begin with? Let's look at the booklet with mind maps, and one of the mind maps focuses on IT roles. It's right here on the page number 7. So what we can see is the whole IT landscape, right? So you can these days just start recruiting, for example, data specialists, or testing specialists, or administrators, analysts, support specialists, DevOps engineers, designers, software developers. So there are so many different IT roles, and you may be overwhelmed by all this. So what I would recommend at first is to focus on the software development roles, because I would say probably 70% of all the profiles or all the jobs are within this group, the blue group. So front-end developers, back-end developers, full-stack developers, those are front-end plus back-end developers, and also mobile app developers. There are not too many desktop app development jobs, so I would focus on these roles: front-end, back-end, full-stack, and mobile app development. This covers, I don't know, probably 70% of all the jobs that you could be recruiting for right now. And this will give you some idea how it works in IT recruitment, and then you can slowly progress to those more advanced roles. Because, for example, DevOps is, well, it is in high demand, but at the same time, it's really difficult to look for these professionals, because DevOps is quite abstract, right? Like DevOps is a methodology, it's a set of best practices, there are DevOps tools, so it's quite difficult to actually comprehend this area. I would not start with DevOps. And then there are, for example, data roles, which these roles are really in high demand. These guys are also paid well, so your commission will be relatively high. But it's also not the easiest area to start with, and there are not too many of data scientists out there. Same with cybersecurity. Companies are willing to pay gazillions of dollars or euros for each of these, but there are very few cybersecurity specialists on the market. So you would spend weeks or months looking for just one of these, and you could struggle with this position for a long time. Instead, if you only focus on front-end or back-end developers, mobile app developers, it will be much easier for you to fill these roles, because there is a high demand and there is also substantial supply. I hope this answers your question. Cool. But yeah, it's really cool that you are starting with recruitment. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. We could look at some other profiles. So I'm just looking at, say, Vladimir. I'm just randomly opening a few profiles of backend developers, looking at their profiles on LinkedIn, just the simple version of LinkedIn. We could also use LinkedIn Recruiter or Sales Navigator. But for now, oh yeah, this is not in English, so I'll skip this one. And probably, I don't know, Anna. Let's see. Anna Galkina. Anna Galkina. So she also focused on backend development. Let's see which language she uses. Peer-to-peer landing. So she uses Apache Kafka, Spring Boot, microservices. So Spring Boot, Spring is a framework used in the Java ecosystem. So if you again open up the booklet with mind maps and you go to page number 13, was it 13? No, yes, it was 13. You would find Spring right here connected to Java. So Java is the programming language, Spring is the framework. Spring Boot is one of the sub frameworks within the Spring framework. So we can assume that she is a Java developer. And further, right here, a year earlier, she worked with Java 8. So now it's sort of clear that she is a Java developer. So Java is a programming language and Spring as the framework used. And she also used Spring a year before, so together with Hibernate. So yeah, so she seems to be a relatively senior Java developer. She's been in the trenches for quite some time. Oh, look, also Java 7 right here since 2017. So she would be a great candidate for a Java backend developer position. So if you have a client who is looking for a Java backend developer, she would be a good fit. Well, I need to close all these chat messages. That would be actually funny if you guys send me a message on LinkedIn right now. I could open it up and also that's how we could chat. It's pretty cool, right, these days. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm recording this live so we can open up some of the profiles that you may also be working on or looking at right now. Okay, so this is relatively straightforward profile, especially if you look at this mind map, you see Java, you see Spring Hibernate, clear and straightforward, pretty cool. So let's open up some more complicated profile. On the other hand, what we can see is a set of relatively standardized IT roles. You can also see these roles on the previous mind map. So there is a backend developer, front-end developer, right? There is a full stack developer, cross-platform mobile app developer. So, this may all seem quite complex, but at the end of the day, it's not rocket science. There are only 70 roles. When I say only, it's quite a lot, but still it's just 70, right? It's not 2000. So what else? We could see here Jan Petter. What about this dude? It's opening up. Jan Petter, backend software engineer. He's passionate backend Golang engineer. So he seems to be focusing on Go language. Go language is the language that's been developed by Google. That's why Go language. In the past, let's look at the beginning of his career. Most likely he has not been using Go at the beginning of his career because Golang is a relatively new language. So it would be quite unlikely that he would be using it 10 years ago. And we can see that he's been using Netty framework. So Netty is a framework that's related or written in PHP. So I go back to the mind map over here and you can see Netty right here. So it's a PHP framework. So this developer has been using PHP, and it's quite interesting, right? Because he doesn't write that he was a PHP developer, but in fact he was a backend PHP developer using native framework. So if you are in IT recruitment, it's really essential for you to understand the relationship between programming language and a framework and some of the tools these developers use. Because, for example, jQuery is a library that's being used on the front end. So this guy was not just a backend developer, but also a front-end developer. jQuery is a front-end development library. So he was also developing front-end of those applications. So he was sort of a full-stack developer, right? Backend plus front-end. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask, since I'm recording this live. Okay, what else? Freelance web developer using PHP language. So you can see he was using PHP since 2009. Seems like from 2009, 2010, 13, 15, 16. So he was using PHP until 2017, and then he shifted to Go language in June 2019. So after 5, 6, 7 years, he was probably tired of PHP and wanted to change to something, say, not just modern, but something new, right? Sometimes people need some change, and this was the change for him. So he changed his career path to not just be a backend developer in PHP, but backend developer focused on the Go language. And now he positions himself as the Go developer. Okay, so it's questionable if he would be willing to start developing in PHP again. If you have a client who is looking for a PHP developer, maybe this is not the best fit because he was already working with PHP. It seems like he changed the career path or the preferences, and he doesn't want to, at least it seems like he doesn't really want to work with PHP anymore, since he also writes it here, passionate backend Go developer. He doesn't mention PHP anymore. He seems to focus on Go. So yeah, he would be a good Go developer candidate. All right, let's continue to the next list and just randomly open a few candidates. What about Pavlo? Let's see. Pavlo. No, here, this one. Pavlo. Innovative, proactive, broad IT experience. So he uses PHP, Stack 5.3. He uses Symfony framework, native PHP. So Symfony is one of the popular frameworks. As you can see, it's here bolded. So yeah, it's quite popular these days. So this developer has been using PHP for quite some time. So he's a PHP backend developer. If I go back to the list of IT roles, you would see that there are PHP backend developers, right? PHP developers using either Laravel or Symfony. So here we have a candidate for a PHP Symfony backend developer. But he may also have experience with other frameworks. He may focus on Symfony, but still he might have experience with some other frameworks. I cannot really see it quickly right now, but he mentions PHP Unit, which is the testing framework. He mentions Jenkins, which is the test automation and CI, continuous integration tool. He mentions Postgres databases, a relational database MySQL and Postgres, a non-relational database MongoDB. Yeah, he would be again a good candidate for the PHP backend developer position. And I'm really just going broad. I haven't even searched for PHP developers or backend PHP developers. But what we could do then is to say look for Symfony PHP developer, right? Like if I have a candidate, if I have a client who is looking for this specific stack developer, then I would be looking for Symfony PHP Developer. And you can see there is quite a lot of them on LinkedIn. Okay, so some of them have it in the title, full stack freelance PHP developer. Then it's obvious, right, if they have it in the title. It's much more complicated with developers or IT professionals in general who have incomplete profile, or if you cannot really see more about their past experience. But with those guys who have something written, as we've seen just a while ago, it is just so much easier, right? We've seen the programming languages, we've seen frameworks, and then it's really, really easy to gauge who are we potentially engaging or approaching. All right, do you guys have any questions related to this topic, backend developers? There are obviously a lot more frameworks and languages we could discuss. For example, C#, right? The C# ecosystem that's booming these days. Ruby, it's not too strong here in Europe, but certainly Python is growing in popularity. Java, yeah, of course. JavaScript, it's also increasingly more popular recently. So we could look at a few profiles. Let's see, maybe we will find some JavaScript backend developers. So JavaScript as a programming language can be used both on the backend side and also the front end side. On the backend side, it is usually used with Node.js framework. You can see it right here. And on the front end side, I recorded a video yesterday just focused on Angular or React developers. So this is how you can really quickly gauge who is who in this really confusing IT world, just based on some of the terms, some of the acronyms, or some of the frameworks that you can find on their profiles. So now I'm looking at this list of JavaScript developers. So let's just open up the first developer, Jakub. He's a full stack JavaScript developer at MSD. So he is skilled in web applications using mainly React.js on front end and Node.js on the back end. So coming back to the mind map again, we see React.js on the front end, right? Plus Node.js on the back end. So this is quite straightforward. Again, the advantage of using JavaScript on the back end and front end is that one developer can use the same programming language to develop both backend and front end applications. So that's why more and more companies are using Node.js on the backend. And he's also been using Python, which is used to develop web applications or even to migrate data. It's used for data science. So quite straightforward. I mean, there is not much to say about this. He has been using JavaScript to create REST APIs using Node.js framework, and he's created front end using where is it? React.js. Oh, it's here. And the rest, I mean, the rest is just fluff. This is the stack he's been using, but it's not too important, right? Because he has experience with SQL databases, but who doesn't? On the other hand, all developers use some SQL database and some NoSQL database. That's just so common. Most of the developers engage in code reviews. This is the standard best practice these days. A lot of developers use Amazon, AWS. You know, it was a thing 5 years ago, but today, like, most of the projects run on the cloud anyway. So it's either Amazon or Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure. So it's not a huge advantage anymore. What is most important for us recruiters is to look for the front-end language and not front-end language, but front-end framework and backend framework, because then you match it with the must-have skills that the IT managers, the hiring managers, the IT directors require. So if you guys have any question, or you would like me to look at a specific role or a specific profile within the backend ecosystem, let me know. I would have a chance to search for a specific position, because I'm recording this live as we speak. Otherwise, I'll just go randomly through a few profiles. I'm looking at, for example, Tuan An Funk. Not sure how to pronounce his last name. He's a front-end developer, React and JavaScript. Well, it's a similar profile as we've reviewed yesterday. He mostly works on the front end. So you see, even if I search for JavaScript backend developer, even then I receive someone who is a front-end developer. So if you are in recruitment, you need to be really, really careful, and you need to be able to quickly skim through a profile to understand who is this IT professional. Is he a front-end developer? Is he a backend developer? Is he a full-stack developer? Or if you don't know, well, then you at least need to ask a question based on what you can see. So he worked mainly with JavaScript stack, with these technologies, server-side, Node.js, Express. So he seems to have some experience. All right, fair enough. Good. Let's see what else. So he created a studio. He leads a small distributed front-end team. He's a front-end developer. Oops, I clicked on this one. Okay. So I would say, sometimes developers like to focus on either backend or front-end, and this person seems to prefer front-end because he positions himself as a front-end developer. Sometimes developers change their preferences. Sometimes they change technical stacks from backend. After 5 years developing backend, they transition to front end, or after 5 years in front end, they change to backend development because they don't want to, just build APIs. So they want to create visual websites. This could be also the case of this developer. I don't know, I'm just guessing based on what I can see. I see that he was a front-end developer, since 2016. Yeah. After he was a key account manager, he probably learned some basics of front-end development, and then he was a JavaScript front-end, backend developer probably here. He used Node.js and Express.js. This is used on the backend side. So here, I would guess he was a full-stack developer. And then he was a front-end developer, and then again a front-end developer, and then he created his own studio. So maybe now he's just doing whatever he has to. If he's responsible for project development, then maybe he just needs to take care of anything that needs to be done. That's the job of someone who starts a company, right? Some of you may probably relate to this. Okay, there is a question. There's a question from Shrikar. What is TypeScript? Well, TypeScript is actually a programming language based on JavaScript. It is, you can see it as an extension of JavaScript or a little improvement of JavaScript. It sometimes I simplify things for recruiters because into some extent it doesn't matter if we are looking for a TypeScript developer or JavaScript developer. Like the syntax is very similar. The TypeScript as a language has ability to validate code if it is working correctly. there are some more tools, etc. But sometimes in the mind maps, I keep it really simple. I, for example, just here have a JavaScript landscape. Where was it? For example, here, right? I have the JavaScript landscape and Angular as a framework. So, if we were like really, say, no, I'm not saying like correct, but if we would really like to be, pünktlich, as they say in Germany, we would probably need to create another language here, TypeScript, and assign Angular to it. But to keep it simple for fellow HR specialists and recruiters, it doesn't really matter that much, because who knows TypeScript would also know JavaScript, and who knows JavaScript can easily learn TypeScript, because it's like, it's like a little flavor of JavaScript. So this is how you can also see it. The IT world is really, really difficult and complex, and to a large extent, I'm trying to simplify things where it still makes sense. So we need to find some balance between overcomplicating things. But what you as an HR professional, talent acquisition specialist, or a recruiter, headhunter, talent hunter need to know is, it's like JavaScript. TypeScript is a little flavor of JavaScript. It's like a little extension of JavaScript. It was built on JavaScript, and it's very similar. So there are some languages and frameworks. So what is important actually is that sometimes developers change from one framework to another, because the framework is just a template. So what I like to talk about usually when we explain these mind maps is that developers sometimes change from Vue.js to React.js, right? From one project to another. In one project, they may use Vue.js. In another project, they may use React framework. Or from React, they change to Angular. Or from Angular, they change to React. But it's very uncommon to change from React to Symfony, right? Because it's completely different programming language. This is in JavaScript or TypeScript.
It's 7 o'clock.
And this is in PHP. So it's like, in French and English, or German and English, or, Chinese and English. Okay, so this is very different. But if you already speak Chinese, well, then it's not too difficult to learn, some regional dialect of Chinese, right? Or if you can speak English well, then you can just learn some vocabulary within IT, or you can learn vocabulary within some other field that people normally may not be aware of. Like for example, I can speak fluently in IT language, or within the IT vocabulary in English. But if you ask me to talk about some other area, like agriculture, like I have zero vocabulary in that specific area. And this also happens with software developers. They can change from React to Angular, or from Node.js to React.js, but they cannot change from, or they can, but it's not easy. It takes a year probably. It takes half a year or a year to go from Ruby on Rails to Symfony, because it's very, very difficult. It's a completely different programming language, from Ruby to PHP. Okay, so yeah, that was a long answer to your short and concise question. Do you guys have any other question related to what we are talking about? If not, then I'll just continue. I'll move on to a few more profiles. We are looking at backend developers. I opened up JavaScript developers, so we can see probably some Node.js being mentioned, or Express.js on the backend side. And by the way, when we look at these mind maps, there are many more frameworks. I just focus on those that are most common, most popular by developers. What you can also do is to look at Stack Overflow. There is this Stack Overflow survey. Every year they ask survey 2021. They ask or 2020. They ask tens of thousands of developers what programming languages, what frameworks do they use, and you would be able to see some of the most common, obviously, JavaScript, PHP, and also some not so common. So probably I'll be able to find it quickly. Respondents, no, it was, let's say, the technology. Hopefully you guys can still see my screen. And there are most popular technologies and the most popular, yeah, it's right here, the most popular languages in this case. So JavaScript, HTML, CSS, that goes without saying because no website can exist without HTML or CSS. So this is one of the very basic skills, very common, it just goes without saying. SQL, the same, like every relational database uses SQL, so developers just know it, at least on the basic level. What is interesting is Python, and this is growing in popularity quite substantially because, especially due to data science applications, Python can be used to process data, which is really growing recently. Java, well, billions of devices are powered by Java language, so there is no surprise we can see it here. Bash, PowerShell, well, this is used by system administrators, DevOps specialists, right? A lot of the applications. C# by Microsoft, this is also growing in popularity recently because C# can be used for web development, mobile app development, also IoT, data science, machine learning, etc. TypeScript is the flavor of JavaScript, as I mentioned. So we can see 25%, most likely due to the popularity of Angular framework. So Angular is written in TypeScript. And then we can see some other languages, such as Kotlin or assembly. Wow, I'm quite surprised that this is quite a high number, I would say. 6% use assembly. Swift by Apple, Objective-C, right? So you can see some of these languages. Haskell, I actually have not included in the mind map, nor Scala, or Scala probably, yes, I cannot recall. Yeah, and there are actually some more questions. Yeah, thanks a lot for your questions. PR for a senior PHP DevOps developer. Would you touch on these requirements? So let's see what are the requirements. MySQL, MongoDB, JavaScript, jQuery. Okay. OOP, REST SOAP. Okay. SVN, Git, NetBeans, AWS, Google Cloud, Azure. Okay. So if you think about the role, right? It's a senior PHP DevOps developer. So you are actually mixing here two different roles. One is the PHP developer. So this is someone who uses either Laravel or Symfony or CodeIgniter or Cake PHP, right? Like this is a person who is that developer. So he's using a database to store data. So imagine a website, the website needs to have some front end, some back end. It needs to store some data, right? So the developer would store the data in MySQL, which is the first acronym that you have here. Or the developer would store the data in non-relational database, which is MongoDB. And this is quite common, right? Developers need to store data. MySQL is the first choice usually. MongoDB is one of the second or third options. JavaScript and jQuery, well, these are used on the front end. So what you are telling me by this is that you are not just looking for a backend PHP developer, but you are looking for someone who is also a front-end developer. So someone who can also create front end of the application, so the user interface. So what we as users can see. And so now you are repositioning the role from the backend developer to a full stack developer, because as you've seen on the mind map on the page number 7, is that as soon as you mix front end skill with the backend skill, you get full stack, right? It's right here. Full stack developer is someone who works both on the backend side plus the front end side. Okay, so we are no longer talking just about a backend PHP developer, but also front-end JavaScript developer. OOP, it's object-oriented programming. That's fairly common these days. REST SOAP, like these are just like standards, how to exchange data. Same with API, like this is, I would say, just a sort of random mix of keywords. I mean, API is the application programming interface, XML is the format, how they change data, but this is not really important for us in recruitment. I just sort of know it because I've been working as a developer myself and I've been using this, but it's completely, I would say, irrelevant in terms of IT recruitment. You just need to focus on the high level information, which is the match. Are you looking for a backend developer, front-end developer, full-stack developer, or even a DevOps developer? But then the question is, what is a DevOps developer? Well, it's just someone who, with DevOps, it's quite complicated because of this one reason. Like someone needs to set up the environment while someone is just using the environment, right? So the person who sets up the environment is usually referred to as the DevOps engineer. It is the infrastructure and networking specialist. Like this is the person who has lots of knowledge about how to set up the environment, the architecture of the system in the cloud, how to set up continuous integration, continuous deployment pipelines, etc., etc. So this is quite advanced skill set, and usually these are not developers. These guys don't develop websites. These guys focus on infrastructure and networking, right? And then as soon as it is set up, developers just come in and they start using it, right? So those are developers who are using what someone else in the DevOps ecosystem has created. So if I come back to the role, as you mentioned, the role for a senior PHP DevOps developer, well, this just sort of means that the person works in a DevOps ecosystem, I would assume, right? I would need to ask the hiring manager, but I would assume that we are talking about a PHP developer, but not just PHP developer, but as we've seen right here, the backend PHP developer plus front-end JavaScript developer in one person, meaning a full stack developer who is working with one of the cloud technologies, because frankly, it's quite uncommon to have experience with both Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud and Microsoft Azure. Like these are completely different cloud providers. So usually a developer would be using just one of these. Okay, it's like you also, if you use some CRM system, you don't use 3 CRM systems, right? You just use one CRM system. Why would you use 3 different CRM systems? It doesn't make sense. So also this requirement just tells me that this is quite generic role. It's not really clear who to target. I would rather reposition the role to a full stack developer who works with PHP on the back end, JavaScript on the front end, and has already been working with some cloud environment or in some cloud environment. And I would drop the DevOps buzzword from the job title because it is just confusing. Usually the DevOps refers to DevOps specialists, DevOps engineers, and the requirements are totally different. So this was again a rather long elaboration, but these topics are not easy, right? Like I know you guys may struggle with this because it is just so confusing, right? So yeah, I hope you find this useful. Okay, Akrishar, you are asking, can you help me? Some important questions we can ask the candidates during the screening round, a question that would help us judge candidates better. Well, like certainly, of course. I actually have written this booklet, which is called the Confident Interviews Guide. So you can just get this ebook, and you would get lots of screening questions. Like for example, here I have I don't know what was it, a CTO or a Scrum Master, web developer. So I can just open up Backend Developer that we talked about right now. It's here. Okay, so front-end developer. There is also a QR code, so you can watch a dedicated video where I only focus on this role. I explain the role, also with some slide deck. And then on the next page, there is a CV, some resume of a developer, again from LinkedIn. But the most exciting and important part is right here on the other side. So what to ask, a few questions about the role, what tools, what languages this person uses, and then what to ask during a call or an interview. So you can also use this before your call with the hiring manager. Oh, my camera is now defocused. Now it's focused again. So you can also use this guide before your next call with a candidate. And I also have written another ebook, which is called Clear Job Requirements. Here are job requirements also analyzed in a similar fashion. You have here, for example, Java Backend Engineer, and on the right-hand side, you have a few questions that you can ask the hiring manager about a similar role. So, I mean, this is not any rocket science. So you can just go through some of these questions and start using them right away. So you asked me about these questions about what was it? This one was about the backend developer. So let's say I have here a question. What is your favorite programming language and why? Just in case we don't know already, like with some candidates, it is clear upfront. We've seen a candidate who was clear about his passion about Golang, right? So that's obvious. I would not ask this question. But if a candidate has been using PHP, JavaScript, Golang, etc., then I could ask this question. I have here a question, do you maintain any open source repository? This would tell me if the candidate is already contributing to open source, if he's on the edge, if he's receiving feedback positively, right? Because the open source community is all about providing feedback and helping each other. I would also ask if the previous team he worked on was agile. What agile methodology have you guys followed in the past? Was it Kanban or Scrum or extreme programming? Another question from this list. What projects are you currently working on in your spare time? How did they come about? So yeah, what projects do you work on in your spare time? This is important because the best developers have some projects they work on in the evening or over the weekend. So yeah, it's one of my favorite questions. And obviously these are not too technical questions because the technical questions are always related to what we can see on the profile or on the resume related to the framework or language the candidate has been using. So yeah. Okay, next question. Beats Gamer asked, so if you can also choose a full stack developer if you cannot find a backend developer. Yeah, certainly, of course. So what I like to ask a candidate, if say, in many cases it's not really clear if the candidate is a backend developer or a full stack developer or a front-end developer. So in that case, I approach the candidate. Well, it's not a candidate yet, but I approach the person on LinkedIn and I ask him or her upfront, like, hey, I see on your profile that you focus on full stack, and I'm wondering if you'd be, willing to work as a backend developer on the next project. What's your preference? So I like to find something about the past project. Like here, for example, say in this case, right? I see a full stack developer. If I were looking for a backend developer, I would approach him, right? This guy, say if we are already connected, or I send him a message and I say like, hey, Joe or Carol, I see you are a full stack developer, but I'm wondering if you would consider this backend position because, it's a great opportunity and you were also working with AWS. I'm exactly looking for someone like you who has experience with Node.js. It would be a great fit. Would you like to start focusing more on the backend side? And he says either yes or no. So you will see. Actually, I realized I haven't shared my screen while I was talking about this developer. So Carl, right? Like this was his profile, full stack JavaScript developer. He mentioned Node.js here. So I would totally approach him about the backend developer position only. Okay, cool. PR, yeah, thank you for explanation and simplifying the role. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, keep joining my live streams. I guess I'll only record more and more in the future. Where can you get the book? Beats Gamer asks. You can just go to, I guess the best is to go to our website, geekrecruiters.com. I just commented in the stream, and maybe I can also post it probably somewhere here. Like how could I do it here? geekrecruiters.com. So you can download some of these materials in a PDF form, and I know that some of you may want to get it printed. So we are also shipping this internationally because I've been in IT for 15, 16 years, or I don't know, 17. Who can count it, right? So I don't recall all that terminology anymore. There are so many frameworks and languages and tools these guys use. So I just like to keep this on my desk, and before a call with the hiring manager or a call with a candidate, I just open it up, I look at a few terms, and then I pretend how smart I am during a call. No, just kidding, but still, it helps to refresh your memory. So you can just go to the shop and go get it yourself. So we've been actually using these materials for quite a lot of companies because I also organize training sessions for teams of recruiters, headhunters, talent hunters. I guess some of you guys may be in India, so we also have a client in India, also in the US, in Europe, obviously. So a lot of these principles are applicable around the world. So the fact that the IT is the same everywhere just helps in this sense. And oh yeah, by the way, I have this t-shirt I completely forgot, make IT recruitment great again, which is also one of the reasons why I started recording some of these sessions and live streams. In the past I've worked as the CTO, and I've seen the clash between developers and between recruiters and headhunters firsthand. So this is also a way how to give back to the community and help you guys avoid these clashes so you don't annoy developers anymore and you thrive in IT recruitment going forward. Okay, so I just see kids running around, so hopefully they are not too distracting to you. Unless you guys have any more questions, I guess I'll wrap it up. And I'll be looking forward to the next session, probably, I don't know, on Monday, Tuesday, we will see. If you guys have any idea what the topic for the next live stream should be, let me know. Otherwise, I'll choose one of the many roles in IT. And with that, I'll wrap it up. Have a wonderful day, everyone. And I'll talk to you soon again.